All right, this is going to be a little bit different video because this is going to be a reaction to a reaction video. And the reactor is going to be this guy from Pondering Politics, which I just heard about today. The Pondering Politics channel gets a lot of views. In his about page, it says, an American politics geek who wants more progressive policy, more ruthless Democrats, more defeated Republicans. So this guy, Pondering Politics, wants ruthless Democrats and defeated Republicans. So he's playing the left versus right paradigm lie game, just like pretty much everybody is. And they are authoritarians, even though they speak against authoritarianism. So in this video, Pondering Politics is reacting to an interaction between Chris Cuomo and Brian Tyler Cohen, progressive Democratic propagandist Brian Tyler Cohen. But keep in mind, Chris Cuomo is also a propagandist. Even though he's not with the Counterfeit News Network anymore, he is with Newsmax, and he's just as much of a propagandist for the left versus right paradigm lie as he was when he was a leftist with CNN. So let's take a look at this.
Progressive political commentator Brian Tyler Cohen had a heated exchange on air with centrist journalist Chris Cuomo, who tried in vain to tone police the Democrats, insinuating the Democrats correctly calling.
We're going to be listening to this at 1.25, by the way, just so we can get through this. But I want to bring out some key highlights of where leftists, rightists, and progressives go off the rails.
Donald Trump a threat to democracy is somehow contributing to assassination attempts against him. And Brian Tyler Cohen had to shut that down pretty quick. All right, friends, I have a clip to show you here. It's a segment from a full interview, which I have not seen because it's not dropped yet, between Brian Tyler Cohen on YouTube, MSNBC commentator as well and contributor. He's massive. I think like 3 million subscribers. Dude is killing it. And Chris Cuomo, who used to work at CNN. And when he worked at CNN, I was actually a big fan of his because he was a really tough interviewer. As a matter of fact, you should go back and watch his 2019-2020 interview with Ted Cruz. It's one of the most brutal smackdowns of Ted Cruz I have seen.
Chris Cuomo is the guy who said on the Counterfeit News Network, the Communist News Network, CNN, Turner Broadcasting, CNN, that, hey, we did all we could to help the Hillary Clinton campaign. I mean, we're the biggest supporters of her campaign, which is not something you want to be as a news source because you want to be unbiased. You want to be a journalist who's just ferreting out the truth. You're looking at things as objective and unbiased as a way as possible. And that's not what Chris Cuomo has ever been, and isn't right now. Same with Brian Tyler Cohen. They're all drinking the Kool-Aid is the bottom line, including Pondering Politics. And I'll show you that in a second.
However, since leaving CNN and joining News Nation, Chris Cuomo has become much more of an enlightened centrist than I would like. And so in this exchange, Cuomo himself is a little animated, and he seems to suggest that Democrats calling Trump for what he is actually contributing to the threats against Trump's life. And Brian Tyler Cohen is justifiably annoyed by that, and he shuts it down with pretty good examples.
The guy's not a despot in waiting. Brian, why paint him as a danger to democracy? What do you think is going to happen?
First of all, Chris, it is not anybody else but Donald.
Let me just start with this. We need, if democracy, like the founding fathers identified it and defined it, if democracy is two wolves and a lamb deciding on what to have for dinner, if democracy is the tyranny of the majority, we need somebody coming out against it. See, what they like to do is they like to term define and change the definition of terms. And they like to say that democracy is synonymous with liberty or freedom. You want freedom, don't you? Well, if you want freedom, then you want democracy. And anybody who comes against democracy is against America and against Americans. But nothing could be further from the truth. Democracy is a cancer that we need and we will come against if we are free men who just want to be left alone.
Trump, who has said that he wants to terminate the Constitution, who has alluded to this idea that he wants to be a dictator on day one. It was his own running mate, J.D. Vance, who called him America's Hitler. So this idea that it's just the Democrats that are perpetuating these ideas that Donald Trump is akin to a fascist is a complete misnomer. But look, just on the violence, I want to go through a small list here because it is not the Democrats who told rallygoers to beat up protesters and that we would pay for their legal bills. That was Trump, who laughed at Paul Pelosi after he was bludgeoned with a hammer, who called for military tribunals for...
Paul Pelosi, in the estimation of some, is just a criminal. Why would we care how a home invading criminal treated another criminal? That's like bemoaning Al Capone getting his house broken into and getting threatened with a hammer. Al Capone's a criminal, right? Like, he gets his you make your bed, you sleep in it, you get your just desserts. Who's going to be crying, shedding one tear over Al Capone? Same thing with Paul Pelosi.
Liz Cheney, who said that the Second Amendment people should go after Hillary Clinton, who called General Mark Milley to be executed, who posted a baseball bat photo with Alvin Bragg and threatened death and destruction if he was charged, who posted images on the Truth Social showing Biden hogtied in the bed of a truck, who laughed off the kidnapping plot of Gretchen Whitmer, and finally, who incited the events of January 6th. All of that was Donald Trump. Again, the reason that the Democrats don't want Trump in power is because we don't want violence. That's
the Democrats do the same things. If the Democrats and the Republicans didn't want violence, not one of them would have signed the Patriot Act. Not one of them would have fallen for the Gulf of Tonkin lie back in the 1960s that got us embroiled into the Vietnam War. And everybody thought it was a really good idea. Government is violence. If you are a government functionary, you facilitate violence. It may not be you going out on the front line with an assault rifle that doesn't need to be on the streets of America, but it needs to be on the battlefield. But if the pen is mightier than the sword, then the politicians' pens, whether you're a congressman or a senator, have put a lot of men on the front lines who got obliterated. They signed off on bomb dropping, on rocket launching, on the destruction of people in other parts of the country so that we can nab resources that didn't belong to us. So we can occupy a nation build and create the military industrial complex and the prison industrial complex at home and the war against drugs, or the war on drugs, which is really a war on people. It's the Democrats and the Republicans that are doing it. So while some of what Brian Tyler Cohen is saying is true about what Donald Trump has said and the violence that he wants to foment, it's equally is true on the Democrat side, which he is a card-carrying member of. Same thing with this Pondering Politics. It's really creepy. It's crazy. It's outlandish. And it's just another indication that people in America who are drinking the Kool-Aid of the two-party political system, the left versus right, are deeply mentally troubled.
the whole point of the movement against him.
Again, masterclass performance. I wish that the full interview had been released, but I checked News Nation earlier and they still have not released the full interview, although I'm sure they will. Brian Tyler Cohen has been on Chris Cuomo's show before, but that was an excellent masterclass rebuttal and refutation of the stupid idea that it's improper to refer to Donald Trump correctly because somehow we're contributing to threats against him. Number one, that has not been established. Number two, the fact of the matter is we should not be obligated to lie about Donald Trump in order to protect Donald Trump.
I totally agree with that. Donald Trump is a liar. Donald Trump is in the back pocket of the Federal Reserve, but Kamala Harris is a liar. Kamala Harris is in the back pocket of the Federal Reserve. Donald Trump is for red flag confiscation laws. Kamala Harris is for red flag confiscation laws. Donald Trump is for the devaluation of the American dollar, which is the devaluation of your time and laboring energies. Kamala Harris is for the exact same thing.
Donald Trump is a former president of the United States. He has Secret Service detail that is second only to that of the sitting president of the United States, Joe Biden. And by the way, it makes sense that any sitting president, Republican or Democrat, would get more protection than any former president, be it Donald Trump, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, George W. Bush, whomever.
Why are we protecting political parasites? I don't care if they're on the right or the left with guns, that those people who are protected by those guns are trying to take away from the rest of us. Again, just highlighting the obvious insanity here.
So Donald Trump is well protected, and rightly so. As a matter of fact, people are advocating for him to...
I don't want to protect him. I don't want to protect Biden. I don't want to... Well, rightly so. What do you mean rightly as opposed to wrongly? It'd be wrong if we didn't protect Donald Trump. It would be wrong if we didn't protect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Give me a break. They put this, again, and that's another thing that the left, the right, progressives, that's what they do. They put everything up on the moral plane. And they say, if you don't attain to this, then what you got here is absolutely wrong because my way is right. Protecting the president is right. Even though he's a psychopath and a narcissist and a megalomaniac.
Be further protected by increasing resources to the Secret Service. I'm fine with that. But the fact of the matter is Donald Trump is an authoritarian, and Donald Trump has promised authoritarian outcomes. He has attempted to deliver authoritarian outcomes in real time on camera for the span of certainly during his presidency, but even before that, when he was a candidate in 2015, 2016, he was promising authoritarian ends. And as a candidate in 2024, he's attempting to do the same.
Is Donald Trump an authoritarian? Absolutely. Name one government functionary that's not an authoritarian. Let me just define authoritarian here. Favoring or enforcing strict obedience to authority. Government is authority. They claim the right to rule you. They claim the right to tell you what to do. And if you don't submit to their rulership and do what they say, then they reserve for themselves the right to punish you. So they believe they have the right to rule you. Government does. And you have the obligation to obey their rulership or you're punished. And they believe that that is right as opposed to wrong. So it's right to rule you. That's what authority is. Yeah, that's Donald Trump. He wants to rule you. Kamala Harris is running for president because she wants to rule you. No difference, especially that of government. So favoring or enforcing strict obedience to authority, especially that of the government at the expense of personal freedom. Let me just give you an example how this is all authoritarianism. He's calling Donald Trump, rightly so, an authoritarian. But then he's blind to the fact that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and Barack Obama and Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton are also authoritarians. They lay down the law and the peons obey. That is authoritarianism. And if you don't think we live in an authoritarian state, try to keep 100% of everything you went out to earn today at work. Try to tell the government that you're no longer going to pay property tax. That's authoritarian. You have to obey. If you don't, they will take your stuff. If you resist, they will end your life or put you in a cage for the rest of your life. That's authoritarianism. What is so difficult about this? Because they choose to take sides against logic and reason and history.
But Chris Cuomo is saying, hey, just lie about him, grade him on a curve, don't call him for what he is in order to protect civility. That's nonsense. And Brian Tyler Cohen's also correct. I mean, in the sense of when it comes to encouraging violence, inciting violence, Donald Trump is a breed apart. Donald Trump.
Government is violence. A synonym for government is violence. A synonym for government is coercion. It's enslavement. It's doing something to others that you wouldn't want done to yourself. That is government. And that's what these guys are promoting. Oh, you need my flavor of government. If you don't have my flavor of government, then you got the wrong flavor of government. What does he say on his thing? He says, we want more ruthless Democrats and more defeated Republicans. He wants ruthless, merciless Democrats.
Encourages
by the way, that's violence.
Incites more violence than any politician in this country, certainly more than any Democratic politician.
Hypocrite. Step right up. We get another hypocrite under the big top.
And to pretend that this is not the case is to ask Democrats to lie and to not ask Trump. Instead, what Chris Cuomo should be saying, hey, Donald Trump, if you don't want to be called an authoritarian threat to democracy because you believe or want to cynically argue that it's a threat to your life to be referred to as such, perhaps.
Well, Kamala Harris is threatening your life when she's saying, hey, we are going to institute gun bans. We're banning AR-15s. We're banning assault rifles. We're banning high-capacity magazines. We're going to force you to register your firearms going through background checks, which are infringement checks. In other words, it's the authoritarian who says, shall not be infringed. Screw it. I'm going to go ahead and infringe, and there's nothing you can do about it because I'm an authoritarian. You frickin' hypocrites. Get it through your thick skulls and develop a backbone, won't you?
You should stop acting like an authoritarian threat to democracy. But see, you see how, again, Democrats, the burden is always on Democrats. The burden is not on Trump to not act like an authoritarian. The burden is on Democrats, apparently, to not call an authoritarian. And Brian Tyler Cohen is right to just reject it wholesale. Listen, no, we're not going to do that. Yes, we will continue to call him an authoritarian threat to democracy because he is. Also, here are all the it's not even a comprehensive list of examples of the times that Donald Trump has incited violence or encouraged violence, making him, again, objectively worse than any Democratic politician. But also, the burden is on Trump.
Here's another guy.
And it should be.
Here's another guy with a red bracelet on. Why is that?
The New Republic has a good article, speaking of Trump's authoritarianism. It was published within the past 6 days. It was by Greg Sargent. It's a long article. We're not going to read the whole thing. But again, it goes into, and it cites many examples of the slow burn authoritarianism of Donald Trump. You've read about the scary horrors of a Trump second term, but a legal war of attrition that harasses MAGA's enemies and transforms government info into propaganda could prove to be more insidious and harder to mobilize against. If Donald Trump wins in November and launches a full-blown authoritarian presidency next year, as he's promised to do in his own words, what exactly would that national nightmare look like? One set of offloaded worst-case scenarios looks something like this. Trump orders his client pick for attorney general to prosecute Liz Cheney and other high-profile critics and frog march them.
But all these people need to be prosecuted. Every single one of them. Trump, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, Joe Biden. They all need to be prosecuted. The problem is we have an injustice system filled with unjust judges and perverse prosecutors. Every one of them. Even the prosecutors need to be prosecuted. But who's going to do it? We need moral people in order to do that. And you don't have moral people in the halls of government. It's being overrun and absolutely run by lobbyist groups like AIPAC. And this guy right here, this pandering politics or pondering politics, he's a political panderer too. He's just another mole we need to hammer down with the truth in this political whack-a-mole game we find ourselves in. I'm not going to play the rest of this video. Leave your thoughts about this for the world and the global thought police in the comments section below. The price of freedom is now and will always be eternal vigilance, guys. Indifference to this notion is the means by which the people have and will secure their own oppression. Let's stop securing our own oppression. One of the best ways we can secure oppression is by picking up the cup of Kool-Aid and drinking it as we become card-carrying members of the left versus right paradigm lie. I will see you in the next video.